Spongebob Squarepants is one of the most iconic and successful cartoons of all time, rivaling adult shows such as The Simpsons and South Park in areas such as longevity and cultural impact. To this day, the franchise has generated nearly 14 billion USD dollars in estimated revenue, making it the third most valuable Nickelodeon franchise behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Dora the Explorer? In fact, the show has surpassed normal levels of popularity to become a cultural touchstone for Gen Z, and it played a significant role in shaping our collective sense of humor. Part of what has made SpongeBob so successful is the fact that the humor transcends generations despite being a kids show. I'm sure many of us have memories of watching the show with our parents as kids, and a lot of time they were laughing right alongside us. Of course, there is the odd joke mixed in here and there that was specifically meant for our parents, such as the doubloons joke from Gary Takes a Bath, but at its core, SpongeBob's absurdist humor is particularly appealing to Zoomers. Absurdism is one of the fundamental pillars of Zoomer humor. I think this is largely because the world we have grown up in has become increasingly chaotic as we've gotten older. And while most people in general would probably agree that the world seems more complex once you grow up, as the first generation to grow up with the internet, and also after 9/11, I think it's fair to say that to us, Zoomers, the world just seems to be a bit extra complicated, to put it lightly. I mean, just in the last 5 years alone, we've seen massive political upheaval, the largest conventional European war since World War II, a once-in-a-century pandemic, and the largest and most publicized humanitarian crisis of the 21st century. Furthermore, Gen Z watched the 2008 economic crisis and the war on terror unfold during our childhoods, and we are collectively still living through the fallout of those events. And at the end of the day, cartoons are a form of escapism, a way to avoid and forget about the horrors of the world for 11 minutes, right? During the 90s, we saw children's shows become increasingly absurd in general, with programs like Courage the Cowardly Dog and Ed, Ed and Eddie becoming hits for Cartoon Network, and shows like Ren and Stimpy, and later on, Spongebob Squarepants for Nickelodeon. SpongeBob built on the successes of these earlier shows, leaning into absurdism with a cast centered around a talking sponge shaped exactly like the one your mom keeps by the kitchen sink. Of course, SpongeBob's cast and setting are not that absurd on their own. After all, talking animals have been a common theme in kids shows since the beginning of animation. But SpongeBob and his friends get themselves into all kinds of wacky and absurd situations in many of the episodes throughout the show. One great example of this is the episode I Was a Teenage Gary. The episode's ending, where SpongeBob and Squidward get turned into snails because they accidentally injected themselves with snail plasma, is certainly one of the stranger things I watched happen on my television when I was a kid. Then there's SB-129, where Squidward time travels 2,000 years into the future by locking himself in a freezer, which apparently wasn't opened in all of that time. A particularly iconic example of absurdism in SpongeBob comes in the episode Wormy. This one always kind of creeped me out as a kid, mainly because of the jump cuts to the close-up of a butterfly they use. But there is no denying that the plot of this episode is pretty absurd. SpongeBob and Patrick create mass hysteria in Bikini Bottom by spreading the news that Sandy's monster, which is actually just a butterfly trapped inside a bubble, is eating people. So this basically leads to Bikini Bottom becoming a post-apocalyptic wasteland until Sandy returns and traps Wormy in a mason jar, bringing an immediate end to the panic. But it isn't just the plot lines of these episodes that contribute to the absurd humor of the show. It's also the jokes and visual gags themselves. There are great examples of this all throughout the show, even just in the episodes I've already mentioned. For example, in SB-129, right before Squidward enters the time machine room in the future Krusty Krab, he walks into another room after he was given bad directions by SpongeTron. That room just happens to be a giant can opener, and he walks out all shredded only to be perfectly fine 2 seconds later when he gets into the time machine. But you know, if I had a restaurant 2,000 years in the future, I too would put my giant can opener room right across the hall from my time machine room. In Wormy, we see another great example of an absurdist visual gag as SpongeBob and Patrick take the secret entrance to the Krusty Krab, walking through a door in a rock, which seems to act like a portal linked to a similar rock that magically appears inside the Krusty Krab, only to immediately disappear and never be seen again as soon as the camera angle changes. These kinds of random and unexpected jokes make up a significant amount of the humor in SpongeBob. Patrick pulling out a pickle for Squidward to marry after SpongeBob accidentally shrunk him, Patrick telling SpongeBob they aren't cavemen, they have technology, only to smash Mr. Krabs' dollar with the computer, and Patrick dressing up in a gorilla suit all immediately come to mind. There are plenty of examples that don't involve Patrick too, but I thought it would be funny if I just didn't mention any of them. As SpongeBob increased in popularity throughout the Aughties, the early 2000s, it would become one of the most influential kids programs of the 21st century, at least so far. Shows like The Amazing World of Gumball and the regular show, released roughly a decade later, were targeting those same kids that grew up watching SpongeBob, so it comes as no surprise that those shows also heavily lean on absurdism as a defining characteristic. But SpongeBob's influence would go far beyond children's television. You see, SpongeBob also came out at the perfect time to take advantage of this amazing and horrible thing we call the internet. But before we get into that, I want to introduce today's sponsor, me. I am launching my Patreon at the same time this video is being released, so if you've been liking my content and want more content and are interested in getting to learn more about who I am, please check it out. Right now, I just have one tier where for $5 a month, you get access to a Discord server, behind the scenes content, influence on the topic of future videos for the channel, and a Minecraft Let's Play series where I will be recreating Bikini Bottom in Survival Minecraft. If you want to support me but don't care about those extra perks, I also have created a tier where you can give me whatever amount you like, but there are no added benefits. I am planning on adding more tiers and perks in the future, depending on the success of the channel, so I look forward to seeing how this project grows. With that being said, let's get right back into the video. SpongeBob rose to popularity during the internet's infancy, and before the third season finished debuting, the world was already introduced to the first social media websites, including MySpace.com. And as the show's fans were the first generation to grow up with the internet, they played a huge role in creating the culture of the internet that we all know and have mixed feelings about today. So I guess it doesn't really come as a surprise that SpongeBob is one of the most prominent figures on here. I mean, it's kind of hard to browse the internet without coming across SpongeBob. He's all over the internet, from Reddit to social media, and of course, here on YouTube. The area where this became exceedingly obvious early on was with the rise of memes. SpongeBob was a prominent figure in early memes, with iconic formats from the show taking the internet by storm, including the I'll have you know format, the imagination format, it's not my wallet, and that one from Dying for Pie with Squidward and Mr. Krabs looking at SpongeBob through the window in the Krusty Krab. Over the years, we have been introduced to countless new SpongeBob memes too, including some of my all-time favorites like Handsome Squidward, Is Mayonnaise an Instrument, Insane Squidward, Patrick with wood nailed to his head, and many, many more. Some of these have even become so popular that there is literal merchandise out there related to them. Honestly, it's almost as if the humor and visual style of SpongeBob was specifically designed with meme culture in mind. There are countless examples of scenes from the show that haven't even turned into major meme formats, but they easily could have and potentially still will. As a result, I have little doubt that we will continue to see more meme formats come out based on still frames from the show. One of the more annoying SpongeBob memes, but still one that I reference on a regular basis, is the one where SpongeBob is acting like a chicken. This format exploded, I don't even know how long ago now, as every week for the past several years has felt never ending, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, This meme became a popular choice for Zoomers trying to express irony, which is the second fundamental pillar of Zoomer humor. Irony is essentially the opposite of sincerity. To like something ironically is to say that you wouldn't like it typically, but because you are aware that it is cringe or lame or whatever, then it comes right back around and is cool again. Let's take a look at a meme for an example. Here is a classic example of a meme that might be enjoyed by your father. The joke being that Stairway to Heaven is a Led Zeppelin song and Highway to Hell is an AC/DC song. Do you think this meme is funny? Probably not, right? But what if you saw your dad post this meme on Facebook? I think to a lot of us, we would find it funny in that context because most Zoomers would generally find jokes like this one to be cringe, but any one of us could see our dad share it, and that could inspire us to share it with our friends, which would make it funny to us, with the joke being, can you believe my dad actually thinks this is funny? Of course, in these kinds of situations, it can often become difficult to tell whether someone is laughing ironically or with sincerity, but that's all just part of the fun, right? Gen Z has taken irony to a whole new level with complex layers and nuances affecting the way we interact with humor in general. Ollie's Sunvia has a very good video on this, breaking it down as she explains those extra layers, including meta and post-irony, which I'll link in the description below. But to put it shortly, Zoomers can't seem to get enough irony. It's gotten to the point where liking something ironically has almost become as significant as liking it sincerely. In fact, in some cases, just acknowledging the fact that you are liking something ironically becomes ironic in itself because actually you really like it and aren't being ironic at all. The final pillar of Zoomer humor is nihilism, which, to put it simply, is a belief that life is ultimately meaningless. The reasons why nihilism has become so popular with Zoomers can be debated, but I think it goes back to the chaotic nature of the world I mentioned previously. Thanks to the internet, the horrors of the world have been broadcasted to us 24/7 since we were small children. Things like war, famine, school shootings, hate crimes, and among others, have been on our screens seemingly forever and with no end in sight. Previous generations grew up with a lot more ignorance to these kind of things due to the fact that information spread so much slower before the rise of the internet. In the late 60s and early 70s, tensions were extremely high in the United States for a number of reasons, but one of the big factors was our government's involvement in the Vietnam War. Vietnam was the first war that was broadcasted to basically every American on a nightly basis. It was the first time most regular Americans saw the horrors of the war personally, and as a result, the conflict became increasingly unpopular over time. Zoomers have grown up watching similar events unfold, but whereas Vietnam was seen as an abnormality at the time, today's problems and conflicts have become so common and normalized, and seemingly never-ending, that we have become desensitized to them. And what could be a better way to describe this attitude than through Squidward Tentacles? Squidward's attitude, general demeanor, and the way he gets treated on the show, I think is a perfect allegory for the darker side of Gen Z, including the dark parts of our sense of humor. Squidward is a rather unique character for a children's show. He's constantly grumpy, moody, and just generally fed up with the world and the people around him. He's burnt out. He's accepted the fact that his life sucks and that he may never be recognized for his artistic talent. He has seemingly given up on his dreams of becoming a professional artist and has accepted that things are the way they are and there is nothing he can do about it. Furthermore, bad things just keep happening to Squidward for no other reason than the simple fact that he exists. Many times throughout the show, he seems to be there just to be a punching bag, especially in more recent seasons. I think this is a perfect allegory for how life just isn't really all that fair, and bad things happen for seemingly no reason. And as Zoomers have grown up, Squidward has become an increasingly relatable character. When we were kids, I think most of us weren't really that big of fans of Squidward because he just kind of sucked as a person in a lot of ways. But as we've gotten older, it's a bit easier to see where he's coming from. Many, if not most of us, will work at least one job that we hate in our lifetimes. And many of us will be stuck at that job for an extended period of time. Many of us will deal with neighbors or coworkers that we also can't stand. Many of us will have passions and talents that we will try to share with others, only to be shit on by strangers on the internet, even if the things we are sharing are objectively well done. And all of this is happening while people that are clearly far less qualified than us become infinitely more successful. So yeah, it's no surprise to me that nihilism is popular among Zoomers, and looking back on it, Squidward was really trying to warn us. SpongeBob's cultural impact goes beyond Gen Z though. The show has also made a wide range of appearances in a plethora of spaces in popular culture. It has become so iconic that it has been referenced in well over 100 other shows and movies, including Drake and Josh, Family Guy, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and many more. In fact, I was surprised to see just how many times SpongeBob has been referenced in other shows when I was doing the research for this video, and some of these references legitimately blew my mind. For example, I was shocked to find out that there is a SpongeBob reference in the anime Gurren Lagann. I've watched Gurren Lagann twice, and neither time did I notice Squidward hanging out in the background during this scene in episode 13. And I think this is a perfect example to show just how far-reaching SpongeBob's influence is. I mean, who could have predicted 20 years ago that a SpongeBob character would make an appearance in an anime? Furthermore, a lot of the shows that have made SpongeBob references have target audiences that are exclusively adults. We're talking shows like Frasier, Robot Chicken, Supernatural, and even Blue Bloods? It makes me wonder if some of these references are coming about because people who grow up as fans of the show are now working in entertainment themselves, or if it's just because that is how pervasive SpongeBob has become. I suppose it's probably some combination of those two things, but I also think this ties back into the fact that SpongeBob's influence transcends generations. Personally, my favorite SpongeBob reference in another show has to be the one in Family Guy, when Peter is watching the camping episode on the mini TV in his car as Meg drives him around. I especially love how the show uses the original audio for the clip, but animated the scene themselves. Notably, anyone can see the humor in that too. You don't have to be a Zoomer who grew up watching SpongeBob to appreciate and laugh at Peter watching SpongeBob in his car. So yeah, SpongeBob played a massive role in shaping the sense of humor of Gen Z. The absurdist plots, jokes, and visual gags prepared us for the randomness of the humor we consume today. And as Zoomers' online presence grew, so did SpongeBob's presence online, which only further increased the show's cultural impact. The way the show portrayed irony and nihilism resonated with a generation that grew up watching the world burn, in some cases quite literally. And even though the show itself has consistently declined in quality over the past 2 decades, its cultural impact remains as strong as ever, thanks to the culture of the internet, which has largely been shaped by Zoomers. If you enjoyed this video and you have regularly been enjoying my content, please do check out my Patreon and consider supporting me over there so I can continue to make these videos. With your support, I hope to continue to increase the quality of my content, and perhaps I will get to a point where I can afford to upload more often as well. That being said, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see me expose the Bikini Bottom Police Department for being corrupt, I'll put that video on screen for you now. With all of that being said, take care, I'll catch you next time, and as always, never forget to be yourself.